Watching the office lights turn off one by one after work has a rhythm that most people never notice. One floor darkens, then another. Desks empty quietly. Chairs roll back under tables. Computer screens go black, and the glow that filled the room all day slowly disappears. Most evenings, the moment arrives without any announcement. Someone zips a bag. Someone else says a soft, "See you tomorrow." Footsteps fade down the hallway. The elevator doors close and reopen, carrying people down to the street below where night has already started settling between the buildings. And then, eventually, the room becomes quiet. There is something strangely calm about being among the last people left in an office building. The air feels different when the day's noise is gone. No phones ringing, no keyboards tapping quickly, no voices drifting between desks. Just the faint hum of lights and the soft sound of ventilation moving through the ceiling. Sometimes you look up from your desk and realize the room has already changed. The lights across the floor are off. A few desks away, someone is packing up slowly. At the far end of the office, another light clicks off, leaving only a small pocket of brightness where a few people remain. And in that moment, the workday feels longer than it did earlier. It is not always because there is more work to finish. Sometimes the tasks themselves are simple. An email to send, a document to close, a few small things to prepare for tomorrow morning. But the quiet of the office at night has a way of making the day feel heavier than it did before. During the daytime, everything moves quickly. Meetings overlap. Conversations interrupt the routine. Messages arrive faster than anyone can answer them. The office feels like a place where time keeps pushing forward, whether anyone is ready or not. But when the building starts emptying, something slows down. You notice things you normally ignore. The faint reflection of the lights in the window. The empty chairs around a conference table that was full just a few hours ago. The way the hallway echoes slightly when someone walks through it. Watching the office lights turn off one by one is not dramatic. Nothing important seems to be happening. And yet the moment carries a quiet recognition that many people feel but rarely describe. Work has ended for the day, but somehow the feeling of the workday has not fully left yet. It lingers in the room, in the quiet desks, in the unfinished thoughts that follow people home long after the lights go out. Earlier in the day, the office rarely feels this quiet. The morning begins with movement long before anyone notices it. Lights come on, computers wake up, and the soft noise of a workday gradually builds across the room. Someone arrives early and pours the first cup of coffee. Another person scrolls through overnight emails while the sky outside is still pale. Soon the elevators begin opening more often, and the empty desks slowly fill. The day doesn't start all at once. It grows. Conversations begin in small pieces. Someone asks about traffic. Someone else talks about a meeting scheduled later. Keyboards start clicking in uneven rhythms. Phones buzz quietly against desks. The building warms with voices, footsteps, and the ordinary noise of people beginning another day that will probably look very similar to the one before. At first, the energy feels manageable. Most people start the morning with a small sense of control. There is a list of things to do, emails to answer, tasks that seem clear enough when the day is still new. The coffee is still warm, the mind still feels organized, but work rarely stays simple for long. Messages begin arriving faster than expected. A task that looked small grows more complicated. Meetings stretch longer than planned. Conversations branch into new responsibilities no one anticipated when they first sat down. And slowly, without anyone pointing to the exact moment it happens, the day becomes full. It fills with requests, replies, small decisions, quiet pressures, and the steady rhythm of things that need attention. Most of these things are not dramatic. They are simply part of the ordinary structure of working life. But the accumulation matters. A single email rarely feels heavy. A short meeting rarely feels exhausting. Even a busy afternoon can still feel manageable when it stands alone. Yet when dozens of these moments stack quietly together, the weight of the day begins to form. People rarely notice this weight, while the office is loud. When conversations are happening and messages keep arriving, there is little time to pause long enough to feel it. The momentum of the workday carries everyone forward. It is only later, when the building begins to empty, that the pace changes enough for the mind to slow down. This is when the quiet hours appear. A few people remain at their desks, finishing tasks that somehow extended past the usual end of the day. The glow of computer screens becomes more noticeable against the darker room. Outside the windows, the sky has already turned into evening. Inside, the office feels different now. The urgency of the day has faded, but the effort that filled those hours has not completely disappeared. It lingers in the small details of the room, the scattered papers, the half-empty coffee cups, the open documents waiting to be closed. Watching the office lights turn off one by one during these moments can create a quiet realization that many people share. Workdays rarely end exactly when the schedule says they should. Even after the tasks are finished, something about the day continues quietly in the background of the mind. The office may empty, but the rhythm of the day does not always stop immediately. Sometimes it simply follows people home. When the office begins to empty and the noise of the day fades, a different kind of awareness slowly appears. It is not loud and it does not arrive suddenly. It comes in small observations that surface only when the pace of the day finally slows down. Sitting at a desk near the end of the evening, you might notice how still everything has become. The same room that felt busy and crowded a few hours ago now feels almost unfamiliar. The chairs that were occupied all day stand quietly around their desks. Computer monitors reflect faint light from the ceiling. The hallway outside carries only the occasional echo of someone leaving. Moments like this create space for thoughts that rarely appear earlier in the day. During working hours, attention stays focused on tasks. Messages arrive, decisions need to be made, and conversations move quickly from one topic to another. There is rarely time to step back and notice how the day actually felt while it was happening. But when the building quiets down, the mind begins replaying small parts of the day. A meeting that lasted longer than expected. An email that took more effort to write than it should have. A conversation that ended politely but left something unsaid. None of these moments seem important on their own. Yet together, they form the invisible structure of the workday, the part that does not appear on schedules or task lists. Watching the office lights turn off one by one has a way of revealing this structure. As each light disappears across the room, the busy version of the day slowly fades with it. The urgency of deadlines becomes less visible. The conversations that filled the afternoon feel distant now. What remains is the quiet recognition that the effort of the day existed even when no one stopped to acknowledge it. Work often looks simple from the outside. People arrive, sit at desks, complete tasks, and leave when the day ends. From a distance, it appears orderly and predictable, a routine repeated across offices in cities everywhere. But from the inside, the experience feels more layered. There are days when the work feels smooth and manageable. Tasks move quickly, conversations flow easily, and the hours pass without much resistance. And there are other days when even small tasks seem to require more energy than expected. Nothing dramatic happens, yet the day feels heavier in subtle ways. The effort becomes quiet rather than visible. Those are the days when the office lights turning off one by one feels different. The darkening room seems to reflect something about the pace of the day itself. As the building settles into evening, the movement that filled the hours before gradually disappears. In that quiet space, a small realization sometimes appears. Work does not always leave the moment the workday ends. Even after the emails are sent and the computer is closed, the feeling of the day can linger for a while. Following people through the elevator, through the building lobby, and out into the night streets, where the rest of the city is already moving in a different rhythm. Watching the office lights turn off one by one sometimes reveals something that rarely appears during the louder parts of the day. It is not a dramatic thought, and it does not arrive with any clear conclusion. It is simply the quiet realization that much of adult life moves through routines that no one really stops to describe. Most people wake up, go to work, complete the responsibilities waiting for them, and return home when the day ends. The structure repeats itself with small variations. Monday looks slightly different from Tuesday. Some weeks feel heavier than others, but the overall pattern remains steady. At first, this routine feels temporary. Early in adulthood, work often carries a sense of movement towards something ahead. Promotions, changes, new opportunities, different paths that still seem open somewhere in the future. The workday feels like part of a larger journey that is still unfolding. But over time, something subtle changes. The routine begins to feel more familiar than temporary. The same desk, the same building, the same daily rhythm of arriving, working, leaving, and returning again the next morning. This shift is not negative, and it is not necessarily disappointing. It is simply one of the quieter recognitions that arrives slowly as years pass. The workday becomes less about discovering something new and more about continuing something that already exists. Most people do not talk about this shift very often. Conversations about work usually focus on results, projects completed, goals achieved, challenges solved. These are the parts that are easy to describe and easy to measure. But the deeper experience of working life often lives somewhere else. It lives in the steady effort of repeating tasks that must be done even when they are no longer exciting. It lives in the quiet persistence required to show up again the next morning after a long day the night before. It lives in the small discipline of continuing responsibilities that rarely attract attention. Watching the office grow darker at the end of the evening can reveal this invisible side of work. Each desk that becomes empty represents someone who carried their own version of the day. Someone who answered messages, solved problems, managed expectations, or simply stayed present through hours that asked for steady concentration. From the outside, the building looks calm, but inside each workday, there are hundreds of small efforts that rarely become visible once the lights turn off. Some people leave early and return home before the evening settles fully. Others remain a little longer, finishing the last pieces of the day. Neither choice means more or less dedication. It simply reflects the different ways people carry the rhythm of their responsibilities. What becomes noticeable during these quiet moments is how normal this rhythm has become. Entire cities follow the same pattern every evening. Offices empty, lights go dark, streets fill with people heading home. Restaurants begin serving dinner to workers who have just finished their day. Yet within this shared routine, every person experiences the day slightly differently. Some feel satisfied with what they accomplished. Some feel tired without fully knowing why. Some think about tasks waiting for tomorrow. Others simply sit for a moment before leaving, letting the silence of the building settle around them. Watching the office lights turn off one by one is such a small moment that most people never mention it, but occasionally it holds a quiet recognition. The day has ended, yet the effort that filled it does not disappear immediately. It fades slowly, the same way the lights fade across the room. Not suddenly, just gradually, until the office becomes another quiet building in the night. Eventually, the last few lights remain. The office floor that felt full earlier in the day now holds only a small island of brightness. Desks sit quietly in rows. The hallway outside has already gone dark. Somewhere in the distance, an elevator opens and closes one final time. Most evenings end like this, without anyone paying much attention. A laptop closes softly. Papers slide into a bag. A chair rolls back under the desk. These small movements are part of a routine that has repeated itself hundreds of times before and will probably repeat again tomorrow. When the computer shuts down, the room changes again. The glow that filled the desk disappears, and the quiet becomes more noticeable. Without the screen light, the office looks different. Less like a place where things are happening, and more like a place that is simply resting until morning returns. Walking toward the elevator at the end of the day often feels slightly slower than arriving in the morning. The hallway that once carried conversations and footsteps now echoes gently with each step. Doors close behind you, and the building settles into the silence that will hold it overnight. Outside, the city is still moving. Cars pass through the streets below the office towers. Lights from restaurants and small shops glow against the sidewalks. People are finishing dinners, meeting friends, or heading home through familiar routes that look the same every evening. From the outside, the office building blends into the skyline like every other building around it. No one passing on the street sees the hundreds of small efforts that filled its rooms earlier that day. The conversations, decisions, frustrations, and quiet persistence that shaped the hours inside are invisible now. All that remains are dark windows and the faint reflection of streetlights on the glass. And yet somewhere inside those dark floors, the rhythm of the day still lingers for a moment. Not as tasks or deadlines, but as the quiet trace of time that was spent there. Most people carry that trace with them as they leave. It travels down the elevator, through the lobby, and out into the night air before slowly dissolving somewhere between the drive home and the quiet of the evening. Tomorrow morning, the lights will turn on again. People will arrive with coffee cups, bags, and small plans for the day ahead. Desks will fill, screens will glow, conversations will begin again as the building wakes from its brief silence, and by the time evening returns, the same quiet moment will appear once more. Watching the office lights turn off one by one after work, a small part of the day that most people barely notice, yet somehow recognize when they finally do.